So many questions to answer in this video. What is the point of a bus comp? What is the name of JST's new mastering plugin? Is mix bus spelled with 1 or 2 S's? Why do they call it a sub mix? Because I'm having mixed feelings about my subs. Come on. So make sure to compress that sub button, like button, and bell to be notified when we drop new vids. That was my earliest transition yet, straight out the gate with it. It's an audio channel, straight out of the noise gate with it, and this is going to be an episode about compression and the way you should approach gluing each of your mix buses to make them sound cohesive. And then of course, the sprinkle of adding some final compression on your master bus to make your sub mix or mix buses sound glued together. Getting compression right is the third most important element in any mix if you ask me, right behind having the right source material and EQ. But people often leave it to the single tracks instead of focusing on the auxes or the buses. Well, by the end of this video, my friends, you'll know the proper way to compress each of your buses in a mix. So what's happening, fam? Miami here with JST, and I'm a fanatic for getting the most out of a bus compressor. Sometimes I'll push it so hard I have to put a de-esser on my bus compressor to take the extra S off. Now, it's just a bus compressor. I thought that was funny, but you really gotta know a lot of things to get that joke, right? You gotta be an audio nerd. You gotta know that we typically spell bus compressor with 1 S, and then you gotta know when it first was brought up, SSL on their console put it as 2 S's, which would make sense because of British English. It's a stereo comp, so that would be their plural form. And then you gotta know that de-essers take off unnecessary S's, and you somehow gotta think all of that's funny. But this next part is going to slap, so I suggest you give me a thumbs up and strap in, because I am obviously talking about bass bus compression. I want to really dive into the bass bus. To some of you, your question might be, why does bass need a bus? It's a single track, so you should be able to process everything on that track. But as many in the rock and metal world know, it's a popular technique to split your bass in up to 3 different tracks to create the perfect bass tone. And if you need some help understanding that technique and how to accomplish it, well, I have a video called How to Destroy Low Mids That Ruin Your Bass Tone, so make sure that you guys watch that. And oh snap, it's almost at 40,000 views, so I guess you already probably watched it. Anyways, you send the tracks to your bass bus, and my personal favorite choice for this is to use a limiter, since you've already compressed the lows to oblivion and just want to make it gel. You can use something like L1 for this, but I'm a fan of Joel Wanasek bus glue guitars. Yes, bus glue guitars on bass because I'm not trying to process my bass sound, and that's where the bass bus glue really shines. As you hear this example, I really want you to pay attention to what you think is happening. I'm only going to play it one time. Let's see how this goes. So I'm sure most of you thought the compressed version sounded more pinned and louder. But what if I told you the uncompressed version was louder? I purposely lowered the compressed version over a dB so you could see when a limiter raises the level of the softest points to be consistent, it can sound louder than the track actually is. Now let's listen again, but let's look at the meter this time. That consistent level of compression is what we're talking about when we use the word glue. Hope you were able to hear that and understand its importance. Side note, you shouldn't really need to go over 3 dB of compression on a bass mix bus, but up to 5 is okay if you really feel it's necessary. Anything else, you're just being extra. And since we're being extra, let's go to the instrument that has like 20 extra tracks going into its submix. Drum bus compression. I'm gonna keep this one short and sweet. I wanna test you all on this one since I'm curious where your heads are at. I'm gonna play a drum stem through 4 different compressor types, and I want you to tell me which you thought sounded the best. Let's get straight to it. Okay, so which do you think made the most sense here? The opto didn't have attack and release, so it doesn't have the controls desired to handle the transients the right way. The FET added too much distortion to the drum bus, and the tube sounded really vibey and might have worked on a slower song, but I guess that leaves the VCA. And what I like to do after adding the bus compressor is add a clipper or limiter to just catch the peaks, so we might as well try out JST Maximizer. And the low end was a little muddy, so I'm gonna use the mono low end feature to tighten that up as well. Just remember, using a clipper or limiter at the end of a drum bus can help immensely when your kick and snare are poking way too hard through the mix. Now, when it comes to guitars, it's a little different because they're so distorted that they don't really need a ton of compression. A limiter works wonders on a guitar bus, doing about 1 dB. VCA compressors are also very good for guitar compression since they don't add distortion by nature. These tend to sound great with a 2:1 ratio, doing 3 dB of compression at the most. Why can you compress more with the VCA than a limiter? Because a limiter is basically a 20:1 ratio versus the 2:1 you'd be using with a VCA. So we're gonna listen to it bypassed, then with the VCA compressor, then bypassed again, and then a limiter. In this test, I want you to see what you notice is different, not just between the bypass signal and the compressed one, but the differences between the VCA and limiter. Now to my ears, I noticed that the VCA, while compressed, is a bit more bouncy than the limiter. Depending on if you want something to have more movement or be less dynamic will be the determining factor of what you reach for. I've been doing a lot of talking, so it only makes sense to move on to vocal bus compression. You can use an array of compressors when it comes to vocals, but on a bus, an easy go-to for anything aggressive is the FET compressor. It's a great choice because it really puts that vocal in your face without compromising the dynamics of the performance. I typically think attack at 4 to 5 on an 1176 with a release of 7 does the trick really well. And that's not to say you can't use other types of compressors, but this adds some harmonic distortion that really brings out the meat of the vocal. The blackface is really good for this, as I feel the blue stripe can be a little too spitty on a bus. 3 to 5 dB of gain reduction is typically optimal here. Anything more and you're gonna probably be ruining your taste. So let's take a listen to that before we move forward.
I feel the mouse looking over my shoulder. Well, what did you think I'd see as we got older? Rise or fall, we could have saved them all.
Now, you see how much more in your face that was, but if it wasn't crazy apparent, we're gonna show how important that is. We're gonna play that exact same clip back, but this time with guitar behind it. Then you'll see how integral having it compressed that way brings it to the forefront, and how the harmonic distortion helps it stick out over top of the instrument that sits in the same frequency area.
I feel the mouse looking over my shoulder. Well, what did you think I'd see as we got older? Rise or fall, we could have saved them all.
Now, another thing to remember is every single one of these audio vocal tracks has compression on it. The main, the double, the triple, as well as the harmonies. But it took compression of the mix bus to really make it shine and cut through and be punchy. And now onto the master bus. Actually, I'm gonna hold that off because I feel like the mastering deserves its own episode. And I wouldn't be doing it justice trying to stuff that and the rest of the wonderful features that are in JST Maximizer into one video. So we're going to pick up on that soon. I mean, hey, we already went over drum bus compression, vocal bus compression, bass bus compression, and the obsession that is guitar bus compression. With these tools mastered, you'll have no issue gluing your mix together to be cohesive and keep those transients under control. Do you want to see me dive into the world of synth bus compression and the like? Leave it in the comments below and I will chat with you fine people, like I always do. If you're an engineer on the come up, give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, you only have to do it one time, and tap that bell for notifications so when a video drops, you know the location. Until next time, I am out of here. Mic drop. Except as engineers we know, we never really drop this thing, because that gear really expensive. And I guess it's not a piece of sure, because somebody must have rode away with it.